not make the law too complicated and improve efficiency and equity, and there'll always be ways around it. I've read the arguments that the industry is going to reorganize, and you know, the 2 and 20 and present form of industry organization have been around a long time, even when, by the way, capital gain was not a factor, as it is not with respect to certain hedge funds. And I think experience shows that reorganizing industries and changing the way people do business is very costly, and it doesn't happen very easily. So while I think that's something to watch, I'm not convinced that that's the concern that some people think.
Thank you very much. Chairwoman Norton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm interested in a subject that's raised time and time again during this crisis, and that's the notion of regulation. It appears that we may have moved out of the mode of being a kind of to be or not to be, to regulate or not to regulate, that is, to something we don't hear a lot of discussion about. If you're going to regulate, how you're going to do it, who's going to do it, not a lot of meat on those bones. Indeed, there may be a contest among various agencies. So I looked at your testimony. Let's start with you, Professor Liu. You raised the idea, and it's interesting you say that one would have to expand the scope. Of course one would. One doesn't think of the Federal Reserve as such a regulatory agency. But you raised the notion of the Federal Reserve as the direct oversight agency for at least the largest of these funds. Why do you think the Federal Reserve is the best of the agencies to do such regulation?
Well, primarily because the main issue regarding hedge funds and systemic risk is their impact on the liquidity of markets. And as we know, the Federal Reserve is the lender of last resort. They are the manager of market liquidity. So if it's a liquidity issue that threatens the global financial system through the hedge fund industry, the Federal Reserve will be the natural regulatory agency to focus on that.
Chairman Aruna, you, in your testimony, suggest, of course, the agency you chaired, the SEC, to essentially register, have hedge funds register with the SEC. How do you think a rule to register with the SEC would improve its ability to monitor and think this crisis now would to reduce the systemic risks we've seen?
Well, first of all, I think that the registration provision to extend to hedge funds as they do not under the current law. Secondly, the registration would allow the SEC to engage in inspection activities, but currently they do not have the power, even in the inspection of investment advisors, to seek risk management information. And I would expand that inspection power so that they would be able to go into a hedge fund advisor and find out what are the risk management systems that are being used, what are the nature and extents of the risks, and who are the counterparties. And that would help the SEC, first of all, to make some judgments about whether the risk management systems are good, and secondly, to pass information on to a central regulator, such as the Federal Reserve Board, to aggregate that information and come to some decisions about how to manage the liquidity risk in the economy.
I wish you'd tell me the difference between what you are proposing now and the rule apparently in 2004 that the SEC actually passed. The hedge fund sector, however, heavily lobbied against the rule, and it was ultimately overturned by the courts. Chairman Cox from the SEC did not seek to appeal it, and did not come to Congress for new authority. So the SEC, I take it, has no authority now, not even the authority under that rule. And what's the difference between that rule and the rule, if any, that you have in mind?
Well, the Goldstein case